it's not as show busy as being at a U2 after show party on the Sunset Strip with Anton Corbijn and lots of A-list movie stars, because that was nice, but the thing, I was just hanging out and looking awkward with an overpriced glass of Coca-Cola, basically.
My guest in this episode has won awards for designing and video directing shows for musical artists touring arenas and stadiums. Depeche Mode, Robbie Williams, Spice Girls, Elbow and Queen, to name but a few. He was born on an RAF base in Cambridgeshire, UK, and moved to the seaside with his mother and brother at only 18 months old. Picking up the bass guitar at 10, he worked on his first live music performance show, Alien Sex Fiend, at the Humberside Theatre. Having been introduced to photography as a valid form of art at 14, he studied graphic design at college and went on to get a BA Honours in photojournalism at the University in Hull. Whilst playing in dozens of bands in the East Coast area, he worked as a photographer and writer for a national chain of musician magazines before studying HND electronic engineering at college. He worked in concert touring before discovering video in 1996. Moving to London to pursue video technology the following year, and has been video directing ever since. During lockdown, he has been performing his own concerts online, making promo videos, taking daily infrared photographs, and has a goal of becoming more handsome. My good friend, Jon Shrimpton, welcome to Unlived Lives.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely wonderful to have you. Tell me about your infrared photographs.
Well, it's I've always been, had an obsession with photography, and since, let's say, when my wonderful art teacher Warwick Mann, who introduced me to the fact that while I had lots of good ideas with pictures and stuff, I couldn't convey things through drawing. I was always really annoyed that still am annoyed that my drawing is terrible. And he sort of introduced me this thing of photography, and you can compose things and get things looking pretty, and you can print them and put them on walls. Oh, cool. It's like the thing that was getting in the way of expressing, it was what ended up being, quite a handy thing as it turned out in the long run. But so the infrared thing, when I was kind of looking for new ideas for shows and stuff, I'm always trying to keep looking at different technologies and just giving them a try. And I've tried lots of different things. I've bought thermal cameras and valve cameras and all sorts of various things.
Valve cameras? Wow.
Oh, they're wonderful. They're the very old school. I've got about 3 of these Sony 3200s, and they are the size of a shoebox. And the picture of them is so terrible, but it's really beautiful. So I bought them with an idea of, I've got lots of night vision cameras that I use for work type stuff, and I used infrared cameras on the Sigur Rós tour years ago, which was wonderful. It made everything look really spooky. But the infrared landscape photography, I bought this camera about 3 or 4 years ago, and just thought, be a thing, might be interesting, might be awful. And while the lockdown's been on, I've been going on daily sort of like 6 or 7 mile walks just around the countryside, because fortunately we're blessed with beautiful countryside around here. And I thought, well, why don't we take this thing out and see what it looks like? And it's become like a daily art project to keep the blade sharp, as it were. Nice. And it's just turned into quite a pretty set of pictures. It gives a a whole different dimension to the everyday world, and it just gives me a little bit of pleasure, and some people seem to like it, which is all one can hope for from anything creative.
From art, indeed.
Yes.
Thinking about your becoming more handsome, as you put in your form, when you look in the mirror, what's the first thing you check?
My eyes, to make sure they're still there, because that's the most. As a person that does visual stuff for a living, that's the thing I'm always the most worried about damaging. I'm forever damaging my hands and doing stupid things and damaging every other part of me over the years of touring and stuff. Yeah, check my eyes and make sure that that's basically it. Is make sure that if I'm going outside somewhere, that everything that needs to be covered up is covered up.
Okay.
So I don't think I'm not a fashionista or an Instagram influencer by any means.
So, like your focus and do you wear glasses?
No, I don't.
No, okay, fantastic. Yeah.
So I wish there was a better answer. I'll probably think of a really good answer for that on the way home.
That's good. What's the best evening you've ever had?
Oh heavens! I think it would probably be. That's a lot of. I've had lots. I've been a very fortunate chap in that I've had lots of very pleasant times with lots of very pleasant people. I think a particular favourite was on my birthday about 10, 12 years ago, and yes, that's the alarm for hurry up. And I was in Bridlington with my family when I woke up, which was wonderful, and I had a gig playing in St Albans, a pub called I think it was the O'Neills. It's got a really big, lovely stage, and the people in there are generally,
There is, for those listening, right behind the door behind me, there are chickens and there is a cockerel, and that's what that is. So winning.
Is that the time?
That's the time. Yeah.
You're 20 minutes early. Come on, get it together.
No, hang on a second. Let's see what we can do about this. Do you mind? You have to do that right outside the door. Come on, away with you. This is very inconvenient. Right, let's try that again. What's the best evening you've ever had?
Oh heavens! I've got lots of possible options and some quite show busy options, which have been very show busy. But I think one of my favourite ones is on my birthday. Woke up, I was up with my folks up in Bridlington, and I drove down here, and I was playing a gig in St Albans, in this pub called, I can't remember which pub it was, but it was a big wide stage, and the people there were always up for being entertained and appreciative, and all my friends came down, so I was playing music, playing bass, which I loved playing bass, with people that I loved, doing music which is all right and entertains the audience, and all me nearest and dearest around. I think that's probably it. I'm very lucky to be doing a job that I love. I'll use the present tense, despite the lockdown, meaning the entertainment industry has been closed for a year. Yeah. I'll use the present tense for that. But I love directing and stuff, but I absolutely adore playing music. It brings me the most joy in performing. Weirdly, for somebody that's quite shy, I love performing. I'm quite gregarious on stage, and to the point of being annoying, probably. But I think yes. I mean, the things I've done over the years and the things I've said on the microphone, I go, oh my God, how on earth could you do that? Jesus. But I think that's probably it. It's not as show busy as being at a U2 after show party on the Sunset Strip with Anton Corbijn and lots of A-list movie stars, because that was nice, but the thing, I was just hanging out and looking awkward with an overpriced glass of Coca-Cola, basically. But yeah, I think that was probably it. Just being surrounded by lovely people, playing music, and yeah, just having loved ones around. I think that's probably where I was happiest evening, I think.
It's fascinating. All of the incredible experiences one you've just described, incredible experiences that people would think would be sort of glamorous and incredible, but yeah.
This is I've been lucky to find out that having experienced glamour, albeit kind of from the sidelines, because I'm not really one for pushing myself forward, that it's the real experience. Sounds like a really patronising term for normal stuff, but it's the showbiz stuff. It's nice, but having actual friends that are sort of with you for all the ins and outs and lefts and rights of life, and doing something you enjoy. I mean, that's quite easy to please like that.
And going back, you said you're quite a shy person. What is it that makes you feel shy?
Oh heavens, there's a whole host of it. I mean, when I was a kid, I was painfully shy, and I think a lot of that is just down to wearing different masks, as it were. So again, it's a bit of a cliche, but yeah, when I was a lad, I was so shy and just wouldn't say boo to a goose, and just worried about all the ifs and ands and all of the ridiculousness. And it's taken years and years of kind of cajoling by myself and others to kind of go, it's okay, people aren't going to attack you all the time, it's probably going to be okay. That situation's okay. I don't know about this, or it turns out it's okay, and that's fine. Oh, okay. I mean, it's taken 49 years to get to the level where I can converse in a more genuine way. Nice. Plus, you're always wearing the mask of when you're in the house on your own, drinking tea, sitting in your pants. You are the actual person you actually are. When you go outside, you go, right, let's get this on. I'm prepared myself for these situations. So when I'm going down to Tesco's, you have one persona, or when you're going for a meeting with international rock stars and telling them you need to spend loads of money to make this happen, you wear a different kind of mask, which is you're sort of projecting a different kind of thing. It's like Philippa Perry, the psychotherapist, said. It's made this analogy with tapestries, that what everybody else sees is the outside of the tapestry, which is all beautiful and paints pictures and words and all these sorts of things. And on the back, it's an absolute mess of just stitches going everywhere, and that's the part that you see. And that was a really lovely sentiment of the fact that, in the same way that most people think that I'm all right. That's maybe a little bit of a bold statement. I hope that most people think that I'm an all right person. But on the inside, you've got all the workings and where all the cross stitches go and all this kind of tangled mess and knots and all this sort of stuff. And you kind of think, oh God, I hope anybody thinks I'm all right and I'm not an idiot or whatever. So it comes from that, and it's kind of realizing that, through all these years of testing yourself in different situations, of going, well, I think I'm all right. I don't think I'm an arsehole. At least I hope not. I do my level best to try to not be an arsehole. But when I was a kid, I didn't have those tests of. My brother has always been way cooler than me. He was the BMX star. He used to do BMX racing and display teams and play rugby and all these sorts of things. And he's always way cooler than me. He still is. But he had the confidence for both of us, because he'd just and he'd go out into the world and and there's this massive presence.
Did he take you with him then?
Not very often. His mates were way cooler than me.
Right.
But I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but he'd go and hang out with his mates, and they were about, again, 3.5 years older than me, so 4 years above me in school. So I mean, I've always kind of admired his sort of confidence and his conviction, And I was always just the shy kid sitting in the background, wearing a bobble hat and looking awkward. And in many ways, I still am. But I'm just better at masking it these days.
Right. So how do you feel that's progressed over your life? That ability, or that you're thinking about that, your awareness of it.
Well, I mean, the awareness. I mean, it took me. I've always been fascinated with the mechanics of things. Like, I was forever getting into trouble with my mum for when I'd get a toy or something. I'd always take it apart and see how it was constructed. And 9 out of 10 times I could put it back together again. The 10% of times has led to a few awkward conversations. And basically usually get my brother to fix it. Bless his cotton socks. And it's the same thing with, how the mind works. And I remember when I was about sort of 10 or 12 going, why am I so shy? Because I seem to, when I'm at school, and my sort of whole policy was kind of making the bullies laugh so they would leave me alone. And so I kind of got this entertain sort of class clown kind of a thing going on, where I would entertain others so that I wouldn't get thumped. And that's, in many ways, it's just the shyness is still there. I'm terrible at ringing people up and arranging things on a social level. I don't like to be the one that instigates, let's go and do this, let's go and do this. Because I always think, they don't want to hear from me. Jeez. So in many ways, it's just the shyness is still there, but the mask is getting better. And I don't mean that like a suffocating way, but it's just the way that you deal with your own neuroses and your own worries about failure. You go, well, it worked that time. It's worked the previous 1,000 times, so if I do it this time, it'll probably be all right. Which is maybe a little oversimplifying it, but...
Do you feel that you have an opportunity to be, dare I say, genuine with people, or...
Oh, yeah, I mean, my whole sort of modus operandi is being genuine. I hate, again, I work in show business, and there's lots of people that pretend to be somebody they're not. And I always feel really uncomfortable around people like that. I mean, there's so many, because that's what you have to do to be in, a show business type situation. You have to have the bullshit factor, for want of a more flowery word, because that's what sells to people. Again, sort of going to you're an international rock star with a massive high concept that's going to cost millions of pounds to make. You've got to have a certain amount of oomph behind you. And so far, I've managed to sort of, by God knows how, I've managed to get to, quite high up in a very competitive thing by being myself and being genuine. Obviously, having this, wearing the mask of
uniform.
Wearing the uniform. Yes, I mean, you wouldn't go to a funeral in a clown costume traditionally, nor would you go to a children's birthday party in BDSM wear, for want of a slightly more safe for work reference. I think God. Not that I have a clown's uniform or BDSM wear in the house, just to clarify, for reasons of social services.
Very well.
But it's just wearing the appropriate thing. So when I go back up north to see the family, which I do very regularly, I'm usually tired from work. It's usually whenever I go back up north to see the folks, I usually fall asleep for quite a lot of the time, and I'm probably not very good company. But I can be myself a lot more there. Whereas when you're at work and you've kind of got to be the head of a department and stuff and answer lots of problems all the time, you kind of have to put this quite thick padded jacket on, which can take all the knocks and the thumps that keeps coming at it. So it's just wearing a different uniform for a different time. So yeah, being indoors at home, and this new hermit lifestyle that this year has brought along, actually been quite nice. It's kind of weird. When things go back to normal, we go back to doing stadium shows, I'm quite anxious about it, because I'll have to remember where I put the armor. Basically, where you put your scarf when it gets chilly. Like, oh god, right. Okay. How do we prepare to talk to? I'm used to talking to maybe one person a day, and that's usually a person that's walking the dog. Whereas when I go back to work, I've got to talk to hundreds of people and ask them to do things that are kind of hard work and they might not necessarily want to do. So that's going to be
a challenge.
It's going to be a challenge of kind of getting back up to being match fit again, really. Which is like, it's like any athlete. It's the same, but for the brain and how you approach people and how you deal with folks.
And talking about your armor, within that armor, are you good at taking criticism?
I'm good at absorbing criticism. I don't deal with it necessarily very well. I'm terrible at taking praise. I think I think a lot of people that aren't terribly confident. If somebody says, "God, that was really good," and it makes you feel uncomfortable and stuff. Or if somebody says, "Oh, that was really good," apart from that one thing, and it's the one thing that's just like an absolute dagger in the heart. Oh God, and that's what
sticks.
That's what sticks, and that's how that's how 14 months into a lockdown, you're in the shower and you're going, "Oh, do you remember that show 20 years ago?" And they said they didn't like the colour of that thing you did. Oh, you dick. And oh God, yeah. So that's. I'm not very with the. Again, it's how the criticism is done as well. If it's done in a constructive and a helpful way, it's easier. But when it's someone who's just "Oh shit," in a dismissive or an aggressive way, so I'm not terribly confrontational, and I'm not one to go, "No, you are wrong and I am right," blah blah blah. I think I'm not particularly good at taking criticism with stuff. I absorb it, and I usually act upon it, but it's I'm bad at taking things a bit too personally.
Right.
Because when you're doing anything creative, you're doing it from the heart generally. And I know some people do it some people have different processes and they do it by numbers and all this sort of stuff. When I'm doing a show or I'm making a bit of pre-recorded stuff or I'm making some music, it's all straight from the heart, and you're kind of laying yourself bare as such, which makes it trickier to put yourself in such a big and subjective situation, really.
You picked up the bass at 10, and you've played in a lot of bands and done a lot of music performances yourself. Yeah. Would you prefer to be on stage?
Oh God, yeah. I I think it's the thing. It's two things in the one sentence, which is kind of poor grammar, really. But the playing music is much more freeing, and it makes me feel more of a connect. It makes me feel more complete. When I'm playing music that I love with good people and a responsive audience, that's the best feeling. It's transcendental. A friend of mine once said to me that, because I think I was at a gig somewhere or something, and I was standing awkwardly in the corner and kind of shuffling around in the corner of pubs because I'm not a drinker, so I always feel like an imposter. And I was feeling a bit awkward and stuff. And then he was with Seb, bless his cotton socks, so he often got me to play a song. And then I was just gregarious, playing stuff. And I went back to being this ridiculous, shy, sticking into the corner of the room kind of a person. Like, yeah, you're right. That is ridiculous. I don't understand it at all. So I think when I'm playing music, it takes me to this other level where I forget how awkward and clumsy I am, and it's a cheesy cliche, but it feels like when I'm playing music and things are going well, I feel like it's a conduit. Some higher energy is channeling something through, and it's nice. And again, it's a little bit of a cliche, but that is definitely how I feel when I'm when I've written pieces of music. And it turns out amazingly, and it's come out in like 10 minutes, and it's effortless. And so there's a few pieces I've written, and that's happening. It's like, oh, that's a thing. Well, that's the thing, yeah. I'll do this and this. I'll write some words. And then within a quarter of an hour, you have this finished piece of music. You go, bloody hell, where did that come from?
Sure.
And it takes you by surprise, and it's just, it's, I don't know if there are narcotics that give you that kind of feeling, but it's amazing. It's the most beautiful thing of this sort of clarity, and it's like like a conduit for some other energy that just sort of comes through you.
And you were saying you do a job that you love, but you would prefer to be on the stage. So,
I mean, it's like I guess it's like being a golf caddy, in so much as you're walking on the course, you're handing the golf. What do they call them? Golfers, I guess. I can tell I'm not much of a bowler. You're handing somebody else. You're acting as a facilitator, and a lot of the time when I'm doing kind of artier shows where I've got a bit more latitude, I'm kind of again, this sounds really pretentious, but I'm kind of translating the music into a visual way. So at its core, what I do on the day job is basically the people that are sitting with the really crummy seats at the back, I make them feel like they're at the front. So, when the singer's singing, you're showing his face, or if he has a certain look, you'll amplify that. If it's guitar break, you sort of go to the guitar, or drums, or key fill, or
sure.
And there's a particular.
You're showing them where to look.
Yes, it's basically if you're sitting in the room, you're looking at a band like that. That's kind of at its root. That's my role. And so asking the cameraman to get certain things and stuff, and then I usually augment it with some sort of effect or something so it makes the whole show seamless. And so it's a very creative thing I do, and I love it. But it's kind of facilitatory. It's helping somebody else be better, which is lovely. And I wouldn't fancy. I've been around fame and the fame machine for enough years to know that I don't think it would sit with me very well.
I was going to say, would you like to be famous?
Yeah, I mean, you always, everybody has the fantasies of, being, having your own TV special or doing a big sold out tour and all this sort of stuff. And I still do, even though I know that at my age, I'm never going to be a breakthrough rock star because, the rock thing is, and the pop thing, popular music thing is a young pretty person's game, and that ship sailed for me. Actually, I don't think that ship ever came near me, if I'm honest. But performing and writing music is a thing that brings me amazing joy. But that's probably because I don't do it for a living. I went through quite a hefty phase of, because I've been writing music since I was about 12 years old, something like that. I was writing poetry and basically rhyming and stuff without music since I was about sort of 6 or 7. And I went through a heavy phase about sort of 20, 25 years ago of just going, oh man, why the hell can't I do this? And having this sort of big thing holding me back of, why can't I be famous? This is ridiculous. And then there's a few things. I've got some very, very dear friends, some civilian friends, like John Whitehouse, who's had at the time spanned the Funky Lowlifes, who do beautiful music, and he was kind of, they were signed and they were dealing in, a level of business. And then my dear friend Seb, who was playing in this band Monkster at the time, and they were working their little socks off. They were a cracking band. I went to see them a lot, playing a lot, and toured them, and I was their driver and whatnot. And they were working really hard, and just they had the songs, they had the performance, but there's something of bands that don't quite make it. It doesn't diminish any of their art by any means. And I read a book called Powder. I can't remember who the chap was that wrote it, but it was about it was just a story of a band that happened to make it big and got caught up in the fame machine and got spat out the wrong way of it. And after reading that, I was like, actually, maybe just writing music for my own edification, maybe that's it. Because as with anything that you study, nothing will kill a passion more than having to do it, if you know what I mean. It's like when I was doing my degree, I got so bored of photography because it became a chore, it became a responsibility rather than being something to do for joy. And so it sort of changed my relationship with it. And I think if I'd studied music, it might have done the same thing. I mean, the college course was a bit unusual in that a lot of the teachers would often not turn up. And I ended up teaching a lot of the students how to do colour printing and enlarging and photo editing and stuff. So I worked in the photo lab, and obviously I worked at the magazine, a guitarist and all that, prior to going to uni. So I knew quite a lot about photo printing and colour balance and all this sort of stuff. So I think I kind of those elements and the sort of the chore of having to teach people as well as being a student kind of put me off photography for a bit. Though, I still enjoyed things, which is why when I discovered video at concerts, I used to take photographs at concerts loads when I was younger, and it used to cost me an absolute fortune because, as having film photography used to do. I mean, it makes me feel like the dinosaurs when I talk to my nieces these days. Yeah, so I'd take these things, and it basically cost me a week's pocket money for a roll of film, and it cost me a week's pocket money, or 2 weeks' pocket money to get them developed. So, and so when video came along, I was doing this tour in a sort of like an assistant stage manager capacity for one of Ireland's premier boy bands at the time, Boyzone. And we did this see the theatre run and helped build the set and helped get various bands on the stage and stuff. And then they came back about 6 weeks later, and then they had like a pair of video screens on the side. And the people I met there, one of them was a chap called Chris Hilson, who now is like Aerosmith and Bruce Springsteen's personal video director. The one, Gary, he is very high profile in television and does Jimmy Jibs for tennis and all international tennis and stuff. And the other one, Matt Askin, was a TV director who is phenomenally well respected, and I actually gave him the job directing U2. So I got to do U2, and I couldn't do it because I'd booked something else. Sure, yeah. Which is I still kick myself about that. I had the little devil on the shoulder going, "Do it! It's the biggest thing in the road." And the little angel's going, "No, you've agreed to do this other thing." Oh. But again, and he's a lovely chap. So I ended up getting in with this unbelievably talented little trio of people who saw that I was into photography, and so I was doing cameras, and it's like, this is great. It's like doing photography, but more of it, and it doesn't cost me a fortune. This is brilliant. So yes, that's kind of how the progression is, and I've gone off piste a little bit. I do apologise.
No, it's marvellous.
And that was the progression. And just not long after that, I went, right, I think there's a future in this video lark. I think it's, there's creativity, and there's a technical aspect which I find fascinating. I'm always interested with new technologies. Less so these days. I feel like I'm becoming more of a Luddite these days. I think I went very, very far with learning how all the equipment works on a component level. And I think more as I've been going to a more creative path is becoming more like a means to an end. So I feel I look back at the things I used to do and go, God, you used to be really clever, and now you're just kind of stupid. But it's just different things. When I was doing technical stuff, I needed to know all the technical things, and the technical things are still with me, but it's not quite as the front of my mind as these days. I've got to come up with more artistic-y, stupid ideas.
But more fulfilling.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love it, and it has been a wonderful. I'm a very lucky chap. I mean, as I say, as a shy kid from a seaside town in the East Coast, I often think when I'm at some massive big meeting with people who've been doing shows for the last 50 years that are the most amazing shows I've ever seen. Like just sitting, I remember being on a private jet, talking to our production manager who did the U2 Zoo TV tour, and he'd been working with them for years, and just sitting there going, I cannot believe that this bloke who have watched his work is talking to me, and he knows who I am, and he's actually continuing to talk to me. This is so crazy. And just learning from these people and learning how they deal with, you know, the weirdness of, you know, wearing the mask in this, you know, very strange little world. Sorry, I'm waffling. I do apologise.
No, it's absolutely fascinating. What advice would you give somebody 10 years younger than you?
Oh, I mean, the key thing is to be genuine. I've always, you know, I don't say strive. Strive sounds like it's a battle, and I'm always thinking, oh, shall I be an arsehole, or shall I fake stuff? You have to wear the mask, which gives you certain different attributes and makes you feel more powerful necessarily, or changes you a little bit, but at your core, you've got to, you know, as a very dear friend of mine once said, if you try and be yourself, because you can't be anybody else very convincingly. You know, I could try and be the kind of the super confident, you know, la-di-da video director who's, but it's not who I am. It's just, I'm just some bloke that happens to do stuff which people seem to like, and that's the best. That's all I can achieve. And then if that all goes crumbling down, you've still got yourself at the end of it. And I think the worst thing anyone can do, I mean, my biggest regrets are the times I've ever been unkind or said anything. You know, sometimes when, you know, in the day job of doing this high profile stuff, you have to reprimand people and stuff. And I don't like doing that because, you know, I like, you know, floating about in my own little fuzzy little world. But when I've said something, and then I think I think, or I find out later that it was unfair. I hate that. I hate it's being unfair to people. That's the thing that keeps me awake at night. Just so, yeah, just keeping genuine. And there's a lot of people that do things in the entertainment industry because they think that that's how people behave. But, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to live with yourself. And if the entertainment industry, for whatever reason, were to stop one day for, I don't know, an unspecified period of time, you know, you can't be that guy. I've worked with a few people who have, you know, they've gone and, you know, they've pissed people off and they've been rude to people, and obviously often with the aid of narcotics, which were a terrible thing for the touring industry, really, because it turns nice people into not nice people, really. And when they get off the road, all of a sudden they're just some guy drinking tea in his pants. Yeah, for somebody 10 years younger, just be genuine and be who you are. There's actually when I used to go to the guitar shop in St Albans, there's a wonderful chap there called Peter Gent, who, you know, fixes guitars, and I'd often just go in there just to sort of for the social and say hello, obviously have a look around and buy too many guitars, as is my penchant. And one day, you know, we were talking about stuff and life in general, which is fascinating. And he said to me that, I said, "Oh, how old are you?" I think he was about 50 at the time. I said, "Oh, I was 34 at the time." I said, "The thing is, once you get past 40, you know, well, you know, it's a cliche of life begins at 40. At 40, you throw away the instruction book and you just get on and live your life." And I thought, and I think about that phrase every single day because it's absolutely on the money. So once I got past 40, it's like, well, I made it this far and I've still got my fingers and I've still got, you know, my faculties, and there's still people that will talk to me by choice rather than because they talk to me because, you know, interaction and stuff, rather than because I have something to give them, or because I'll give them work, or because any other number of contrived reasons people might talk to people. So I think, well, I think I'm doing all right then. And so once you get past the 40 thing, you kind of go, well, I don't really need to seek everyone's approval. You know, I've kind of got this far, and yeah. And it was the most amazing epiphany. I remember as I was getting toward 40, just thinking about his words, I'm thinking, yeah, actually pretty on the money. You're less worried about what people think about you, which is why you see, old blokes sitting in deck chairs with the tops off and, and the hello there's downstairs occasionally peeping out of the shorts. They're just sort of sitting there going, I'm 78. So what? And, there's a lot, when you're younger, I've talked to a friend whose teenage relatives are going through a period of of being bulimic because of which is really sad. And it gave me a bit of a shake yesterday when they told me. And it's just the fact that, I think old youth culture is based around beauty, and it's, in the 70s you'd be hard, with everyone that was on top of the pops, the likes of it, Ozzy Osbourne and stuff, you'd be hard pushed to think that beauty was the key thing. But it's becoming more and more so of a beauty as a commodity. That the Instagram influencers are all in Dubai having a wonderful time with their perfectly toned bodies and their beauty and this millionaire lifestyle. I think for young people these days, it must be a lot harder to be a normal person, because there's this kind of overwhelming deluge of just folks that are this expectation of being perfect and living the perfect life, and there's no such thing as the perfect life. It goes back to the tapestry thing. So you see all these influencers that are hanging around a rooftop infinity pool in Dubai with the most beautiful physiques, hair all done up, looking gorgeous. It's like you think, I wonder what they're like as actual people. I know they're living their best lives, to use the modern vernacular, but you think, and it presents this sort of idealized view of, look at me, I'm so perfect. Aren't you perfect? What, you're living in a village in the middle of nowhere? Oh dear me. So the expectations of young folks these days is just, and the pressure, I'd imagine, is just horrible, because it's presenting this fake life, where the fake or artificial life where it's all based around the appearance, and because of the sort of the speed of information coming in, of the TikTok generation, which is an app that I'm guilty of using myself, where it's like of just sort of swiping past things. Oh, is it interesting me in the first second and a half? No, move on. We're living in a very transient culture of, there's so much information, it's coming at you so fast and from every angle, that the initial impression of being beautiful, that means so much. And a lot of people aren't beautiful generally, or not that model of beauty. They may have a different, they may have
don't fit the bill.
They don't fit the bill. They don't fit the very, very narrow criteria. With if you're a boy, you've got to be a certain height, you've got to be a certain body mass index, you've got to have, a certain amount of abs, often blonde hair, and it's all the bandwidth is very narrow for what is accepted as beauty these days. Whereas there are a lot of people that are beautiful people, but not necessarily photogenic. There's, people have, a single person is so many, it's a whole, Chesterton world of adventures of different things, of different attributes of, how they make somebody feel. So my favourite people, this may sound really rude, a lot of my favourite people, while they're beautiful people, they're not necessarily Instagram beautiful. Some of them are, but most of the point of makes you want to be around them is how they make you feel, and the energy they give off, and how they greet you. And that's what that's what I think makes it important for people, is the sort of the way how they are as a whole, rather than just how pretty they are. And because of the way that information's coming at us so fast, and the fact we're getting so much less human interaction, because even just stuff like, heavens above with the pandemic, when you can't have human interaction, and you can't see people's mouths, and which is a massive thing for the senses, to see how people's mouths are moving and what signals it's giving off. See the whole face. Everyone's getting used to this, and the elbows, and so I'm quite a tactile, huggy kind of a person. Hopefully not to the point of indecency, but I'm a a tactile person. I like hugging people, and not being able to do that for over a year has been really weird. And and it's, I think the fact that we're having home deliveries, sort of packages arriving on the doorstep, somebody with a mask on waving at you, okay, bye. We're losing this human interaction thing, not necessarily deliberately, but by means of logistics, really. And self-checkouts in supermarkets where you don't have the sort of the to and fro of human interaction. So I think we're becoming a lot more insular, and this kind of, so getting people, finding out who people are is a lot more difficult these days. I sound like a really old bloke, don't I? I sound like, he's not like it was when I was younger. But it's not, again, it's not deriding it. It's just more observing it and hoping I don't sound like an old bloke shouting at a bus stop, rather than being an old bloke sitting in a very nice studio.
Going back to your work, do you think people envy you?
Possibly. I don't tend to ask, if I'm honest. I think, again, it's the front of the tapestry, isn't it? From the front of the tapestry, it's I travel the world with rock stars and do stuff and show up at shows. And the back of the tapestry is you miss your family, you miss home, and you miss knowing how to speak the language and having to convert how much everything costs into actually how much it costs in pounds, and missing the family, missing the things that you have around the house, missing the friends that you have. I mean, that's my music career hasn't gone any further because I'm never at home. Not often enough, not regularly enough at home to be able to, get my band going live or keep sort of, playing with bands in the area. So that's the back of the tapestry. It's all other things. But I think a lot of people might be envious. I don't know. I think they find it interesting, and they sort of think, they see the front of the tapestry of this sort of jet set lifestyle. But every situation has its twos and its pros and its cons. The front and the back of the tapestry. There's I think in our industry, there's a lot of people that have got jobs at driving for Waitrose and working in Tesco. They probably aren't going to go back to the touring industry again, because they go, well, it doesn't pay as much, but it's regular, and you're not always stressing about when the next job's coming in, and you see your family and you have a routine. So it's different sides of the same coin, really. I think some people might be envious of it, but there's all the other sides of every situation that come with it, and also it's a very, very competitive situation to be in, because when you do kind of a cool job, which sounds a little bit vulgar, but when you do a job that is cool, especially video directing, there's only one person per tour, and so it's quite a competitive field, and there's a lot of people that are a much better salesman than me, terrible salesman, and fortunately people that know stuff seem to think I'm all right at it, and that's a real blessing, is that, because if it was down to me to go, I'm the best, give me all the work, I would not be doing it, because I don't like pushing myself forward, and fortunately some other people do, which is lovely.
And talking about being the best, in what areas of your life are you happy to be good enough?
I'd say most. I suppose I'm kind of competitive with maybe giving people value for money, if you know what I mean. So when I'm working on a show, I'll make sure I know, like when I'm learning songs that I have to film or design things for, I'll learn the songs inside out, and I'll learn how to play the instruments and stuff, and I'll learn how every nuance of it. And so I'd say I'm competitive in that sense, in the sense of if somebody asking me to do something, I'll put my heart into it. But see, a lot of the times, being the best, it carries a risk of alienating other people and sort of, kicking people aside, all this sort of stuff. So yes, good enough is a big statement. I mean, I like, part of me is quite competitive. I don't like to be. I always worry about being caught out for being stupid, and so that's a big part of me. That's why I always work really hard on certain things, or anything that anyone else asks me to do. I'll always try and work really hard on it, just to, not fall into the trap of somebody going, "This is a pile of crap." Oh, sorry, I wasn't really bothered that day. So I think that kind of comes down to the low self-esteem thing of just trying to, when someone asks you to do something, having to kind of prove yourself and go a little above and beyond. Because I think it's the low self-esteem thing. That's the thing that drives you to do better, because you're always thinking everything you do, you go, that's not good enough. Right. Okay, so it's not good enough. Right. What will be better? What will make people go, wow? What will be the surprise? What will be the extra 10% of juice that will make this really work? So I think there's always that proving to yourself and others type thing, which probably sounds a bit of a cliche, but.
What work were you doing the last time you forgot time altogether?
Oh God, that's so common. That really is. It's usually when I'm programming something or designing something or making music or editing a piece of video. And again, one of the things that I most love about doing creative stuff is the bubble you get into. You get into this weird alpha state, which makes me unbelievably happy. So when you're doing something like playing music on a stage in front of people that are happy, they're going yay, everyone around you's playing amazingly and it's all great, you get into this really wonderful sort of warm bubble state where everything's firing and you feel amazing. And I've done a few shows like that, like with Sigur Rós was one of those, where I didn't have to talk to anybody because I was operating all the remote control cameras myself. I had like 10 cameras, and I was operating all of the media servers and the content off a MIDI keyboard, doing all sorts of stuff. So I didn't have to talk to anybody for the show, because normally doing live camera directing, it's like doing a bad hospital radio. You have to talk to people, keep people on side, and get them to do things, get certain things, and sort of critique how they're framing. They go left a bit, in a bit, focus up. Okay, but when you're in those situations where you're not having to sort of put on a performance of keeping people wanting to be happy and doing stuff, when it's just yourself, you get into this sort of wonderful fuzzy world where all the synapses are firing and you're doing editing or you're making recording, and you go, shit, it's 3 a.m. Oh man, oh dear, right, just another half an hour and then that's it. But that is the most beautiful, that's one of my favorite things, is doing something creative and then going, shit, it's 3 a.m. There's this sort of stark realization that you're probably going to be tired the following day, but the fact that you haven't noticed, it's brilliant.
Do you feel you live an ordinary or an extraordinary life?
Well, I'll be honest, this is my only frame of reference. Everyone's life is different, and I'd say that everyone has their own individual story, and this is the story that I seem to have at the moment, and it's something I'm very lucky for, because again, doing something that I love. I love music, I love doing creative stuff, I love traveling, so I'm very lucky for that, and I'm thanking my lucky stars every day. And but I think it's not the homogenized normal, because it involves these extraordinary things of traveling around, going to concert, being at concerts and stuff, and looking at the world from a different point of view. So I'm not saying a 9-to-5 job is normal, because everything has its own individual dynamics. But yeah, saying it's extraordinary does make it sound a bit more show busy than it probably is. But it's not the ordinary. It's not the sort of the pre-planned life that you imagine when you're a kid. You sort of imagine having a family and a regular job where you can do stuff and have evenings off and stuff like that. So yes, I'd say it's pretty extraordinary, but not in hopefully not in a conceited way, if you know what I mean.
Jon Shrimpton, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Amazing. If you enjoyed this exploration into Jon's unlived life, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the YouTube channel for a new episode every Wednesday. If you're listening via the podcast, please do give the show a review. I hope you enjoyed listening.